Good morning. How's everybody doing? So, myself and the mayor are here to give an update on crime. We want to talk a little bit about the forums that we held over the past couple months, what we learned, and then talk a little bit about some of the different community pieces that we have as we head into summer to really talk about how we keep crime down, how we keep youth engaged, a lot of the different pieces at work. You know, as we always talk, crime, as we work for community safety is a partnership. It's not something that we do just at the police level. I'm very proud of the work that the women and the men do in this department. They do amazing work every day. They do that in light of the fact that we still face a lot of staffing shortages. Join the APD.com. I'll plug that 1,000 times. It's on my wrist. Please make sure we do that for recruitment and retention, but our officers and detectives do an amazing job. But we also have great community partnerships. So we're going to highlight a little bit of that today. But we're going to go over some of our statistics, but our statistics aren't everything. But at the end of the day, the mayor and I were proud of the work that we did going around to the community, to the various neighborhoods, and getting a lot of really good feedback from people in the community about how they feel, what they see, and ultimately what they'd like to see in a partnership moving forward. So we'll jump into things right away. When it comes to our statistics, we're very proud of the work that's been done in the police department, in the city, and with our community partnerships to keep crime down. We know that there's a reality and there's a perception, and we have to address both of those. But one of the ways that we have to address perception is get our numbers out there so people understand that crime is down in this city. So when we look at property crime, overall, all crime is down. Property crime, burglaries are down 25%. So year over year, 171 to 129. Larcenies are down 943 to 695, a 26% change. So whenever I talk about four pillars that we look at enforcement, deterrence, prevention, and education. So that's a host of things. That's making sure that when we look at things like organized retail theft, we work with the district attorney's office and we make sure that we're arresting the right people and prosecuting the right people. But it also means that we're looking at the root cause of crime. So we recognize that when people are committing larcenies, when people are stealing from stores, and they're doing that because they have substance use disorders, mental health issues, when they're doing that because of poverty, that we're also then not just prosecuting those folks, we're actually instead connecting those folks to services. So we're using things like law enforcement assisted diversion to divert people out of the system and getting them help. So those four pillars are really important. Our motor vehicle theft, that continues to decrease by 26%. Now I want to say, like, we always want to make sure we pay attention to our trends. So one of the things that we saw recently was that we were having an uptick in car larcenies, motor vehicle thefts, and we were seeing that in certain neighborhoods. So we were getting the message out to our residents to pay attention to what was going on, to make sure, number one, they were locking their vehicles, number two, they weren't leaving their keys in their car, but also we were seeing a couple different models of cars that people were trying to steal. There were things on YouTube about Kias, that people were trying to steal Kias. There was a hack that people could make. That hack has been fixed by the automaker, but there appear to be some people that think that hack is still there. So we want to make sure that the community is aware of that. So while we have a trend that continues to go down when it comes to motor vehicle theft, we also need to make sure we educate the public. So that number continues to go down. And then when you see overall property crime is down by 26%. So again, really good community partnerships, really good work by the women and men of the department to make sure that we continue to have that trend. Just as important, more important, violent crime. Our gun crime continues to trend down, and down in a good way. Now again, one shot fired in the city is one shot too many, and a shot that we cannot have. When it comes to that, though, we have a 41% decrease in confirmed shots fired. Now, whenever we get a call for a shot fired in the city, we pull an all-out investigation into whether or not there was a shot fired to try to confirm whether or not that happened, whether it was unfounded, whether it was fireworks, whatever that might be. So when we look at that number, that 35, that is when we know that there was a shot fired within this city. But that is ultimately a 41% decrease. When we look at the number of shootings, we have had a 63% decrease in the number of shootings. There have been 11 shootings this city. That's 11 shootings too many this year, but that is a 63% decrease. So that's important to note, because again, when we talk about reality versus perception, those two often are one and the same. The reality is that our violent crime is continuing to trend down. It needs to continue to trend further down. And again, we have community partners here today. We can talk a little bit more about what they're doing, especially with our young men and women that sometimes get caught up in violence that we need to do more with to deter and to prevent. Because what the most important thing that we can do is make sure we prevent gun violence from happening. And then when it comes to actual shooting victims, in that 11 incidents, 12 people were shot. That's still a 63% decrease. When it comes to guns recovered and arrests, you'll see those numbers have decreased a little bit. Of note, one of the reasons why the number of guns have decreased over last year, there was a large seizure last year compared to this year, but we continue to investigate vigorously anybody that carries a weapon out there, and we continue to find different strategies to address those issues. So violent crime, 50% reduction in murder, 3 murders this year compared to 6 last year. Again, there is no murder that is ultimately acceptable in our city. We have a 50% reduction. Sexual assaults, we were seeing sexual assaults on the rise. That number is starting to decrease. Again, we have a lot of strategies in place to address that, and we need to continue to address sexual assaults in our city, especially when it comes to our youth that are in group homes. We continue to work a lot of cases to ultimately arrest and hold people accountable that take advantage of our young youth in this city that are vulnerable. Robberies, we had a 31% decrease. Aggravated assaults, a 4% decrease. And overall violent crime is down 14%. But we have to do this through a lot of different partnerships. I'm going to step away in a moment, but I just want to recognize a couple of people that are up here. So our community partners, David Graham now works for the YMCA, did work for the district attorney's office. David is going to be starting to head a lot of different programming that we're going to refer to him for our youth that we engage through our youth call-ins. So focused deterrence, some of our deterrence is working with our youth that we know that are involved in gun violence, that we ultimately bring in, we speak to, because again, we want to prevent gun violence. We don't want to wait till gun violence happens and just arrest people. That doesn't make sense. So David, through our gun-involved violence elimination initiative that comes from New York State, is going to work with a lot of those youth so we don't just have them in once, speak to them, and ultimately never have contact with them again. David's also run Teen Night with Ron Barrett for 20 plus years. That's been a very successful program that we know has been engaging with our youth. So we'll continue to do that. We also have Pastor Mike Williams up here, who's worked with the coordinator for the Albany Community Land Bank Gun Violence Prevention. He has been a community partner of ours, and we've worked with him and other pastors and community members to make sure that we've engaged with other youth. Lawan Cancer is one of our officers that's worked the To Reach and Connect initiative that we've had in place since around 2014. Lawan is one of our mentors of our youth that's really been in the community for a long time, that's really working with our youth that can be on the precipice of gun violence. Many times we have community members that will recognize that we have a youth that's really starting to go down a bad path. And they will actually reach out to Lawan on their own and say, hey, I have this young man who could really use some direction. And Lawan will start working with that young man or young woman in partnership with other officers, including Anthony Valerian, who's one of our enhanced supervision unit officers, to really start to connect those youth to getting on the right path to many of our other service providers and to really engaging them in that prevention area so we can really make sure that we can make a difference and stop gun violence before it happens. Because again, we have officers and detectives that do phenomenal work every day to investigate incidents after they happen. But we also have to do things before they happen so that never happens, so we never get to that place. So one of the things that came out in our community meetings a lot was around traffic safety, especially the speed limit's been reduced from 30 miles an hour to 25 miles an hour. And in our school zones, we've gone to 20 miles an hour, including many of those, 20 of those different schools where we now have the use of cameras, speed cameras that help us reduce the speed limit and really calm traffic down. So I want to highlight that our crashes are down in the city overall. So overall, we've had a 14% reduction in crashes. And more importantly, we've had a 36% reduction in personal injury. So we know when we reduce the speed limit, when there is a crash, we reduce the likeliness of injury in that crash. So those are the numbers we want to see. The number of uniform traffic tickets that have been written is up there. You'll see there's a 2% decrease year over year. I want to point something out. We don't have a quota in this city. I don't tell our officers they have to write tickets. I would never do that. But we do enforce the law, and we do pull people over. So that doesn't include the amount of times that officers might pull somebody over and advise them that they're violating the uniform traffic laws and that they need to actually change their behavior. Because what we do know is that people do change their behavior when officers stop them and talk to them. So that happens. And the other thing we do know is that if you turned your cameras around, you would see our traffic safety unit is directly across the street from here. Our traffic safety unit, they continue to actually increase the volume of tickets that they write. So their uniform traffic tickets, they continue to go up. So I don't want anybody to see that number going down and think that they can just do whatever they want in the city, because they can't. Because we continue to look at those numbers to make sure that our crashes continue to go down and that we use education, engineering, and enforcement in a way to continue to have our crashes go down, because that's very important for us to do.
Great.
Turn it over to the mayor.
Thank you. So, the chief touched a little bit on what we heard in the public forums that we had. We held forums all across the city so that we could listen to our residents and talk about public safety. And a lot of it was an opportunity for us to talk about the programs that exist, the work that we're doing, the successes that we've had, and the fact that we do continue to see crime drive down. One of the things that we heard from our residents is that they really want to know more about the resources that are available. And we're going to hear a little bit about some of the resources that are available in the community. Within the city itself, we have a robust summer youth employment program that's going to be gearing up once school lets out. This program is demonstrated and has been studied, and statistically we know that it is engaging youth and helping them to see themselves in their future, to stay engaged, to stay involved, and to ultimately graduate from high school. And so we treat this program as an opportunity for us to really connect with young people and to ensure that they are learning new skills and that they are understanding how important it is and how what future opportunities exist when they remain engaged with the city. And so, again, in addition to recreation programs, I want to give a shout out to the Albany City School District, our Hoffman Community Center, which is full and has well over 100 young people that participate in various programs there. Because we are rebuilding that community center, it is going to be closed down. We're shifting that program to Hacket Middle School. So a great opportunity for us to ensure that those young people who do participate have a safe place to go, relatively proximate to Hoffman, and we will be in the Hacket Middle School until the Hoffman Community Center reopens. People also were very interested in hearing about our Albany Navigates program. As the chief has said, we have to ensure that we are dealing with the healthcare crisis on our streets. It's not a crime crisis, it's a healthcare crisis. We have far too many people who are dealing with mental health issues, substance use issues, and are not getting the healthcare treatment that they need. And so we have partnered with the county and with CARES to create a street treatment team that is out on the street case managing The police department is going to be doing similar work. We want to ensure that we are connecting people to the healthcare resources that they need in order to address what are quality of life issues. And certainly for people, it impacts their sense of safety when they see unhoused or unstably housed people out on our streets, in our bus stops, and in our community. And so people were very pleased to hear that we had this program. It has already housed more than 22 people, which is a significant number, given that this program is less than a year old. We also heard from our community that they love our community policing. There were frustrations expressed about the fact that we still do not have enough officers to go back to the level of neighborhood engagement officers that we once had. The chief explained that all of our officers do community engagement, but we heard loud and clear, and we talked about some of the recruitment strategies that we've engaged in so that we can get those numbers back up and bring that back to the level. So it is not a budgetary issue. It is not a policy issue. It is not that we aren't hearing our residents. It is that we need to recruit more officers in order to be able to fill all of those slots. The other thing that we did hear about are these quality of life issues. So ensuring that we have the connection between our residents and how to address those quality of life issues was really important. So we created a new office, and that office has been open now for almost 2 years. We have neighborhood specialists that are assigned throughout the city. Those neighborhood specialists went to these community safety meetings and introduced themselves, really made those connections so that we can help to address quality of life issues. We also talked about, particularly in the summer, all of the events that are coming up. And again, we heard loud and clear, and this is no shot at the media, but maybe it's a little shot at the media. This isn't what they hear about when they turn on the news. This isn't what they hear about when they read the newspaper. And so they really want us to be far more proactive in ensuring that we get the word out about things like play streets, things like the free movies that will exist all summer long at the Palace Theater, the various pop-up events that the police department does, the various community events that are going on across our community. So we're going to be working to get the word out on that so that people can hear the good news. We also heard about our street infrastructure. The chief talked about it a little bit. People want cars to slow down. We're moving into the warm season where we have both legal and illegal bikes on our street, driving fast and causing concerns among our neighbors. And so we do have strategies in place to address that issue, particularly the illegal dirt bikes. I know I live downtown, and we had a few cars this weekend who also have those backfire things that are supposed to sound like gunshots, which is right disruptive. People call the police for shots fired when they hear them. They violate our noise ordinances, but again, difficult to enforce. And so we want to encourage everyone in our community to recognize and respect that we deserve to live in a city where we don't have to deal with that influx of illegal activity. But we've done a lot to make our streets safer, to make them more walkable, to slow people down, and we're going to be continuing to do that all summer. We also shared with our community who their neighborhood resource individual was, the neighborhood specialists, as well as the zones for our neighborhood engagement units. And it was really a phenomenal opportunity for us to engage with the community. We heard many, many positive things, and when we ended those meetings, the overwhelming feedback that we got was, we didn't know this, right? We didn't know that crime was down. We didn't know that you had all of these programs in place. We didn't know the strategies that the police department was engaging in. And so we're going to work to do a better job of ensuring that we're communicating with people more effectively and more impactfully. Any resident who wants this type of information, who wants to really know what's going on, can go onto our city website and sign up to get an email. We're providing weekly emails where we update on issues such as what we're seeing in our community from the standpoint of public safety, as well as all of the hard work that your city workforce is doing in order to keep you safe and ensure that we have a great quality of life. So, Chief, turn it back over to you.
Thanks, Mayor. I appreciate it. So, David and Pastor Mike, can I ask you two to come up and just talk a little bit about some of the different community pieces we have going on?
Sure. Good morning. Yeah, I'm extremely excited this year. This is a great year for the city of Albany and for young people because, as the mayor has mentioned, they're redoing the Hoffman Teen Center, but we're also getting a new pool at Lincoln Park, and West Hill is getting a community center. And to add to all of that, the YMCA is launching a week from today a mobile unit called the Y on the Fly. And so this is an exciting year for young people because we're making a huge investment. They can really feel good and excited about living in the city of Albany. And I'm really excited that we get to partner with the police chief, working with some of the hard-to-reach young people that may have been misdirected or need a little more encouragement. Because I feel like this is the summer, the time, and we have the time to, and we have the investments to make. We have these programs. We're funneling them all toward the purpose of investing in our young people. And I'm excited because, like, you know, I'm a little bit older, so I might date myself. I used to like this cartoon called Voltron. And, you know, it was just like all these kind of superheroes, in a sense, robotics come together and they form one big being and one big body that knocks the bad guys out, that knocks, in our city, knocks violence out, knocks, you know, mental health out. We're working together. And one of my favorite sayings is the African adage, if you want to go fast, you go alone. If you want to go far, we go together. So I feel like this is the year we're all going together, and I'm really excited about it. So thank you.
Can I just say one thing really quick? I meant to say this before. You know, people talk about wanting to work with our youth, but many of them are envisioning very young people. And they are also some envisioning, you know, really good athletes, right? And that's who they want to work with. David works with those kids that people say, oh, I don't know about that, right? Some people even express fear. We can't work with those kids. And that is what we need in this city, is for those who are able to work with those young people who may have veered down a path, but who I firmly and will always believe have potential. Always. We will never give up on them. But the way that we can demonstrate to them that we're not giving up on them is to being able to put them in the path of somebody like the two individuals here who are willing to work with those kids who oftentimes are seen as the largest challenges. So I just want to publicly thank you for doing that.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to ask Pat Man to come over with me. Both these gentlemen are a part of the Men on the Mission team, and what we're doing this year is focusing highly on those youth and the areas of adults that seem to have been abandoned by mentorship. The Albany Community Land Trust Gun Violence Prevention Program has started something very different 3 years ago, and as we began to work what we found out there was a lot of different needs unmet. So we started stepping in and stepping up our game to help meet the needs of those particular issues that were not met. So when families were burnt out of their homes, we collaborated with a host of other organizations and community outreach programs like the Flash, the faith leaders and stakeholders, and we began to collect items, and we began to fund them with book bags, and not book bags, but we began to fund them with some food resources, bus passes to get back and forth where they had to go, and made sure they had good shelter. So when families were burnt out, we stepped up what we did. Instead of just letting them stay out there crying, we helped wipe away their tears. And then we began to work with the probation department and began to work with some individuals on Mondays and Thursdays to try to help those those individuals develop a mentorship that will help them stabilize their life to step up to be better men and women. And then as Men on the Mission, we began to start a program called The Power of Mentorship. And working with The Power of Mentorship, we brought in big brothers, big sisters, 518 Elevate, I'll let Batman talk about that part. And we began to do things that focus on what was really missing out there, and that was leadership. A lot of the kids out there that are struggling with finding their way or lost hope, we found out that they lack people that can actually relate to what they were going through to help direct them in a better path. So we put together programs and events that would bring all these families together with the support of the women. We were able to bring women and men together to start meeting the needs of our community from another angle. So now we're starting to see a change in the lives of these kids that thought there was no hope. Now they see light at the end of the tunnel. And as we begin to do more programs with programs that's already established, we do what we can to enhance those programs without reinventing the wheel. So we go to places like Arbor Hill Elementary School this week. Free haircuts, make sure the kids eat, make sure men and women, men and boys know how to tie ties, and connect them with a mentor. So when that mentor leaves that program, they have a mentee that they can begin to help find their way. And as Men on the Mission, we go as pastors, police, and faith leaders and all that. But when they see a man on the mission, they don't see none of our titles. They see a brother, they see a father, they see a friend, they see someone that can help lead them in a better direction without the title being in the way. So now when we collaborate with the Albany Police Department, they come and they put on their Men on a Mission shirt, but they don't know that's a police officer. Now they know they have a positive influence in their life. They don't see a parole officer, they see a man that's like them that can talk to them. They don't see a pastor, they see a man that can talk to them. They don't see the lawyer, they don't see a title, they see someone that you can talk to me now. And we lead these men in better direction. So now with them learning, with 20 of them learning how to drive, with quite a few of them learning how to go to school consistently now, with quite a few of them now have homes to live in, that were living in their cars. Now with quite a few of them now transitioning their lives, being restored and being rebuilt and being transformed by the renewal of their mind, we're starting to see a better change in Albany. So now what we're doing is doing events monthly that focus strongly on upholding strong family values and the power of mentorship. So now we're bringing in families. We will feed them. We bring food trucks in. We will make sure that they get haircuts. We make sure that they understand our jobs and our resources. And we bring all the programs together. So this is where Batman comes in at, and he talks about what we do.
Absolutely. So good morning, everyone. I'm Batman, also known to others as Paul Collins Hacket. I'm born and raised in Albany, and this city means more to me than anyone could possibly imagine. I have kids and family here, so what happens long term is vitally important, and it keeps me up at night. But I'm very encouraged these days. We can't control what happens on national scales. Things get weird, and we can't control that. What I always tell people is things can be different in Albany. In Albany, what we do defines us. How we work together is vitally important. For years, I've wished that we would have some of the things that we have now. All of us working together, investing in our young people. And it's not just about opening a safe space or just opening a thing for them, but what are we teaching? What are we providing? What opportunities are providing? Are we allowing them room to grow and thrive? We meet them where they're at. We do cool stuff. David Graham has dirt bikes and drones and all the cool things that kids want to take advantage of. We can't arrest our way out of violence, and the chief and everyone else knows that. So we're much more proactive these days. This is what I like to see. We finally have community centers opening. I'm 40, redact that please, news people, don't tell anybody, but I'm 40, and for a long time, I've wished that we had a community center. I've wished that we had services that were available. I've watched Graham and Cook work for years doing this, blood, sweat, and tears, thankless job at times, but it matters. So thank you all so much for what you do. So right now, these days, with Pastor Mike leading the way, we're able to connect with organizations like Big Brother, Big Sister, 518 Elevated, the South End Children's Cafe, and people that have demonstrated track records of working with young people with tangible results. I'm from Albany, born and raised. My father passed away when I was 3 and my mother's blind. I was in the Big Brother, Big Sister program. I needed people to care about me when they didn't have to. I needed people to realize that I was more than my mistakes. And we actually have teams of people working in the community that preach that same message, and we offer hope across the board. So as we move forward, like the pastor said, we're going to have events. It doesn't matter. We'll have barbecues, we'll have food giveaways, we'll have movie nights, we'll do anything to serve this community and help the people. On July 19th, we're actually going to have a barbecue in Swinburne Park, and everybody's invited. We're stronger together. The chief has been a great asset in that, and it was great to see this tangible progress that happens. And we have some really cool officers behind the wall who actually help and are on the ground every single day. So I just wanted to express my thanks to everyone who's made this possible, to be a part of it, and I look forward to what we can build together.
So can you just, if people want to get involved, how can they get involved?
Pastor Mike 1216@gmail.com. Pastor Mike 1216@gmail.com. When you reach out to me, we will do everything we can to collaborate with you so that we can collaborate with the other organizations. The best way to make what we do work in the capital region is unity, because we need everyone to be in their lane. If you know about housing, we make sure you stay in that lane. If you know about big brothers, big sisters, be a big brother, be a big sister, but we need to do what we do to keep everyone in their lane, because as long as you're in your lane, we can have a powerful impact, but we got to do it united. So please reach out to me at Pastor Mike 1216@gmail.com, and we will begin to share all of our information with you and bring you on board with us. Thank you.
And then I just want to do one more thing. Lawan, can you come out here for a second? So this is Lawan Cancer. I just want to point out that, when people talk about police and people talk about the impact that police officers can have in a community, Lawan comes from this community. Lawan understands this community. And Lawan, a number of years ago with Nate Pendleton, they said, hey, we can make a different impact. And I want to speak to the impact that officers can have on the lives of the community. Lawan said, hey, we can change just not going out and answering calls, just not putting a Band-Aid on things. When we talk about strategies and initiatives, they don't all come from the top. Many times they come from our officers. And Lawan and Nate said, we want to be mentors. We want to actually give back to the community we come from. And we want to change the way that we look at our youth. And we want to recognize that we can change the trajectory of the youth and understand that the path they're on doesn't have to be negative, that it can be positive. And that was because of Lawan and Nate, not because of anybody in any leadership position. They proved that you can be an officer and be a leader. You don't have to have stripes or a bar or a star on your shoulder to do that. So I just want to appreciate all that. You're welcome to say anything if you want or not say anything if you want. But that is what leadership is. That is what happens when you take a job like this, where you care about your community and you care about how things are. So I truly appreciate the leadership that Lawan showed, Nate showed, and the recognition of what our officers do day in and day out for this community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, any on-topic questions? Thanks. Oh, you do.
Yeah. So you've been in the job 7 months now, give or take. What has changed under your?
30 years now.
Back into my job. I know you mentioned the community outreach that you've been doing and the meetings you've been having, but what else has changed over the last 7 months to, show such a across-the-board decrease in crime? What's different?
So, I think it's those 4 pillars. Like, you can't just do one of them. We can't just enforce things. We can't just turn around and try to arrest people. Like, yes, when people commit violent acts, we have to arrest them. Like, there's no doubt. Like, we can't turn a blind eye to that. If somebody commits a violent act, we have to enforce the law. But we also have to focus on deterrence, prevention, and education. And we have to have community partners to do that. We have to have officers that are engaged in that. We have to let our kids know that they're part of this community. So like when we had in April, we had a youth call-in. We had a group of young men, I think there was 15 of them, between the age of 14 and 18. And we had to let those young men know that they're part of this community. Like, we don't want them involved in gun violence. Like, their lives they're not worthless. We don't want them dead. We don't want them in prison, because in their minds, that's where they're going. Like, in their own minds, they're figuring like, oh, well, what's the difference? I'm going to wind up dead or in prison. But we actually want to get the message across that that's not what we want. We need to do something different. And we could sit back and just be like, well, it's our job as police to just, when the crime happens, we'll investigate it, and we'll make an arrest, and we'll send them away. But that can't be it. We have to have different things. The mayor mentioned the pop-up barbecues. We started the pop-up barbecues the last time I was here. I've heard people criticize those, and I sit back and I'm like, why are you criticizing community engagement? Why are you criticizing something that started in the fact that we recognize that after a shooting happens in this community, people are scared to death, and we want people to not be scared. We want people to realize that the 99.9% of the people, the great people in this community, want to come out of their homes and enjoy the community. And if we don't foster an atmosphere for people to want to come out of their houses and into their community, all we're going to have is people that are scared. And all we're going to have is the 0.01% of people that are willing to commit acts of violence. That's going to be who's on the street. So we need to change that.
I think, the other thing to bear in mind is that the numbers were trending down. This is the continuation of a nearly 4-year trend of seeing reductions. And in part, that's because of the incredible work of this department. If somebody chooses to use a gun in the city, we need to ensure that we are doing everything we can to keep the city safe. And so I think when you look at the closure rate for shootings and homicides in this city, we're also holding people accountable. And that's an important message as well. And I think one of the things that also signals is that it's not, that's not who we are. To the point of what is Albany? Albany can be different. Who are we? We're not a community where people pick up a gun to settle a beef. And so I think part of that, it does have a ripple effect and an impact when you have leaders like those from the community who are here sending out that message, when you hear it over and over again, and then when you see the accountability that occurs if somebody does choose to pick up a gun and use that gun. I think that's an important factor as well. So it is the 4 pillars. It's what the chief is talking about, but that is something that has been in place and that this department has been and committed to, and we're seeing the impacts of that. And one of the things that we still don't talk about is what caused the spike in crime. And there are a whole host of reasons, and people will need to study it. But what we saw in the city of Albany was that the rest of the system shut down. It can't just be the police. The probation department had to pivot and work on contact tracing. They were not doing home visits to people who were on probation. Our violence interrupters were not allowed into the hospitals, so they couldn't do violence interruption. The courts shut down, so people who were supposed to be sentenced, weren't being monitored other than by an ankle bracelet. And by the way, it's not like in TV where, there's somebody like following that person, right? We find out after the person usually has done something bad. That wasn't happening. And so you have a police department that was showing up to work every day and doing their jobs, but the rest of the system was not functioning the way that it normally functioned. And now that it is, and now that we are going back and using these strategies, the crime was down because these strategies work. The work that these folks do works. But it's, so that's another factor in this of why we're seeing this decline. I'm not surprised by it because I know that the work that our officers do, the work that these community-based organizations do, the work that the violence interrupters do, they matter. They work when we do them, when we fund them, and when we commit to them. Thank you, everyone. Thanks.
Any off topics, Chief? Any off topics or?
I don't have anything if you got something.
Yeah, there was an investigation going on with a taser incident last month. We just want to know where it stands and if you guys have any updates on that.
It's still under internal review right now. But I can tell you this, no one got tased. So that attorney, I don't know, I thought people had ethics, but no one got tased.